Now, as I'm sure many people are aware, one of the biggest explosions in the horror genre when it comes to video games is none other than Mascot horror. Starting technically all the way back in 2014 with the funny bear, probably got the name with the giant red-lipped sock puppet Jamesify continues to abuse in GTA 5 videos, and was cemented as a staple of the horror genre with the release of the franchise Where They Can't Count. And throughout this very expansive time frame, there have been many games that attempted to capitalize on the popularity of this new outlet for horror. But it's safe to say, with the exception of FNAF, none of them are very good. Whether it be Poppy Playtime, barring the third game which I have yet to play, just being walking sims where you get not one, but two of the grabber toys Nintendo put out before they were known as being a bunch of pricks. Hello Neighbor being one of the buggiest and most infuriating franchises that's only saving grace is its multiplayer game, and its second game not being enough to make me want to wrap my car around a tree. And the most recent addition to this Mascot horror genre, the franchise where somebody really likes kangaroos too much. But besides all of those, there are at the very least some games in the genre that stood out and actually were received quite well by players. Some of these includes Choo Choo Charles, the game where you can shoot Moist Critical, Amanda the Adventurer, where you get to play Trauma Center on a sheep, My Friendly Neighborhood, where you get to take out all your anger on the Muppets, and one of the most iconic, according to Google, Silent Hill 3. But when it comes to mainstream notoriety, these relatively good Mascot horror games pale in comparison to what Poppy Playtime, Hello Neighbor, and Garden of Banban were able to achieve. Until recently. You see, I'm not really a person that looks into everything that happens in the world of video games. Most of my exposure to anything that happens new in this space is when I catch a tweet about something that interests me, or if I'm looking forward to an event such as the Game Awards, a Nintendo Direct, Summer Games Fest, where me and a bunch of my friends can just sit in a Discord call and either soyjack at the fact that something we've been looking forward to finally gets announced, or marvel in disappointment to how shit the event actually was. I don't really make it a part of my daily schedule to research the newest upcoming releases, but like I've mentioned, sometimes I'll catch a stray tweet, 9 times out of 10 from an indie game that piques my interest and makes me follow the account wanting to see how development goes, or elements from an already pre-existing game being posted, like characters, memes, or things I'm too afraid to show on YouTube, but I'll let your mind fill in the blanks. And that brings us to today's game, Indigo Park. Now, if you've been floating around the Mascot horror side of the internet, I don't envy you. I'm sure you've at the very least come across this character, a raccoon named Rambly. And as I've said, this is a character that just pops up out of nowhere while I'm scrolling around on Twitter, either through some wholesome fan art or intimate fan art.
I wonder what Twitter's trying to tell me.
Either way, I thought the character looked cute enough, had zero clue from what he was supposed to be, didn't care enough to do any research, and just went on with my day. And then through the almighty power of word of mouth, I've just non-stop been constantly hearing about this new game called Indigo Park. And after hearing people talk about it over and over and over and over again, I finally caved in. So after I decided to do my due diligence and start researching the game, what's this? That Rambly character I saw a few times was actually from Indigo Park. What a stunning revelation. But after all that research and finally realizing what that one character is that's been haunting me for so long on my Twitter feed, I just instantly stopped caring. And then once again, Indigo Park kind of faded away from my subconscious. But on one fateful night, he came to me in my dreams. And after all of that, I just decided to look into the game one final time and saw that it was another first-person Mascot horror game. And then the popularity started to kind of make sense to me. But unlike most of these cash-grabby franchises that cause children to put their families into crippling debt, for whatever reason, Indigo Park stood at overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. So I wondered, what exactly did this game do to receive such a high level of praise? So I finally decided that enough was enough. After all this time of dodging this game, I decided to download the thing and stream the entirety of it the following day. And I thought it was fine. Nothing special, but it was fine. And after I got done playing it, this one single thought kept creeping into my mind. What did Indigo Park do to capture the love and praise of so many people? And I think I may have come up with a few answers that I'm not 100% sure if they're true, but they make the most sense to me. So why don't you sit back, get into the Rambly Railroad, and join me as I try to figure out why Indigo Park might just be the best Mascot horror game. So before we get to theorizing, let's talk about the game real quick. Indigo Park stars you, an urban explorer named Ed, exploring the abandoned theme park to uncover why the place got shut down 8 years prior. After watching this cutscene containing a 2006 character model from the PlayStation 3 era, we see someone's killer gaming setup with a Ban reference on a Sprite can, for fuck's sake. We then cut to the intro of Resident Evil 7, CD-ROMs that no one for shit will remember how to use, and the U2's figure of Rambly that I hope they don't tweet about unless they want Exerto to get involved. And after all of that, we get to our first chapter, Birds of a Feather. We get this lovely loading screen where Rambly seems to be recreating the idle animation from the first Crash Bandicoot game, looking like he's hiding from the cartel. And yippee! We finally get loaded in, and I have to say, this game deserves a medal for having the fastest jump scare I've seen in any game. That caught me off guard, not once, but twice. But instead of talking about it right here, I'll let my traumatic experience from the stream speak for itself. You've got to be shitting me! How much more shit are they? Okay, so look here. I'm gonna push the controller up. You look down. Down, up, down, up. After doing my favorite activity in any video game, that being digging around inside the options menus and not actually playing the fucking game, I managed to fix the controls and got a move on. After getting into a room outside the park, we're greeted by the furry fandom's latest edition that will hopefully not be used to fulfill certain urges. He gives us a quick introduction to the park until he realizes that we're the first person to visit the park in quite a while, and acts like a League of Legends player inviting a real person into their house.
You're our first guest in 2,920 days, 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 38 seconds.
After this little dialogue exchange, and by exchange I mean every conversation in this game is just going to be one-sided, we then need to get registered into the park's database. But before we can do that, I got the absolute shit scared out of me from the game's second jump scare. You know what, fuck this. I'm gonna be like a real sweaty PC gamer, and I'm going to play it with a keyboard and mouse. Just like the Valorant virgins. Oh my goodness. Okay, now the mouse is inverted! After being told to piss off to the main gate, we make our way back to it, where Rambly seems to not know what a locked gate looks like and tells us to go fix the thing and treats it like it's some sort of minigame, much like what I'm assuming line goers are told at Disneyland. We fix the generator by replacing one of its gears, flip the switch, steal a bunch of merch that'll probably go for an ass ton on Craigslist, and we make our way back to the main gate. And woohoo! Look at this wondrous place, filled with overgrown vegetation that most likely harbors the spore from The Last of Us. We dig around the main hub for a little bit until Rambly tells us to go to the gift shop in order to acquire a critter cuff, which does sound like some sort of BDSM tool, but hey, I'm not here to judge, but much to my relief, it's just a tool that we can use to access various different locations around the park. After exploring the park a little bit more, we're then tasked to go to Rambly's Railroad so we can get compensated for the poor state that the park is in, which I do not honestly see the problem, but a free ride on Rambly's Railroad seems like it could be a fun pastime, so why not? After we hop aboard the Hogwarts Express, we're then introduced to every one of the other mascots of the park. We have Molly Macaw, who really loves crashing into barns like they're a piece of tinfoil in Roswell back in 1947. We then get introduced to Finley, who's a depressed snake with hoarding issues. We then get... Does that not go hand in hand then? Rudely interrupted, so it's up to us to fix the railroad. We then ignore the mascot corpse in the corner of the room, fix the railroad, and then we get to continue our little adventure. Finally, we get to meet the one character who I'm surprised the furries didn't immediately gravitate towards, and that's Lloyd the Lion, that Rambly absolutely absolutely despises with every fiber of his being. After that thrilling train ride, we then need to head over to Jetstream Sam's Junction. But alas, the place is locked up, so we need to backtrack to a security office and find a way to gain access. We then head over to an opera house that seems to be themed after Lloyd, and after heading backstage, we're notified by Ramley that he doesn't have eyes back there, and that we need to be careful because our critter cuff can't resuscitate us yet. Very ominous that a piece of paper with an RFID scanner in it would need to perform basic medical operations, but I'm afraid if I ask any questions, they will all yield zero answers, so let's head backstage anyway. As we crawl below some crates, we finally get to see a reject Mufasa outfit attempt to grab us, but it miserably failed. After collecting the key to Jetstream Sam's Junction, we make our way back to exit the opera house and then get the most obvious jump scare with Lloyd grabbing onto discount Ethan Winter's arm, but then some strange high-pitched noise coming from our critter cuff seems to scare him off. Not sure why that was, but I'm pretty sure that MatPat would be able to formulate a compelling theory as to why that— Any case, after making our way to Jetstream Junction, we now are tasked to head over to Molly's landing pad, but I'm a tad bit fed up by being fucked around by this Indigo trash panda a little bit, so I decide to hell with him and head over to this arcade machine so I can play this little mini game over here, which surprisingly was pretty fun. I love the pixel art, we even get some enemies that we're able to kill, and even a boss fight against a dark version of one of our friends. After we beat the fight, oh fuck. Well then, I think that's enough playing around. After finally making our way to Molly's landing pad, we are then greeted with the ball pit room from FNAF Security Breach, only this time with less ball pit physics. 0 out of 10 game. So our goal in this room here is to solve a puzzle involving these spinning shape blocks by finding out the correct combination to them by looking at these paintings on the wall that gives us the answers. After doing that, we unlock one more door and see that Molly isn't looking all too friendly. So much so that she decided that it would be extremely funny to rip out my throat. Not the warm welcome that I was expecting, but thankfully death in a Mascot horror game is not much of a punishment, but a learning experience. So we just load back in and learn from our past mistakes by not letting our esophagus be turned into an external organ. One chase scene later through this kid's restaurant maze that hopefully doesn't have an extremely high mortality rate for 5-year-olds, through these vents that reminds me of another Mascot horror game that isn't really that popular, and one final time through the backstage security place. After running into one of the security offices, we get to behold this non-traumatizing sight. Get fucked, bozo! Bitch moron! Yeah, get fucked! After killing off what in actuality I'm just starting to assume was a disgruntled employee in a fursuit that method acted like his character for so long they could no longer distinguish fact from fiction, Ramley over here finally comes clean and tells us, yeah, the park's fucked. I never noticed, but with our help we can actually try and fix the park together. After that, we head to the chapter's final location, the Oceanic Odyssey, see the depressed Sam the Snake from Rayman 2, and then the chapter finally ends with an actually pretty sweet outro song.
But before you settle down, you up for a little survey to help us improve the park?
Which is just Rambley's way of telling us to stick around for a damn survey. Nah, fuck you, I'm done. So that was the entirety of Indigo Park Chapter 1. And I have to say, it was okay. Which is more than I can say for some of its contemporaries. I didn't find the game mind-blowing by any stretch of the imagination because it just kind of falls under the same trappings that most of these games in the genre suffers from. The game is a roughly hour-and-a-half long walking simulator where you walk, solve basic puzzles. In this game's case, it was locating gears in order to fix some machinery, or that block puzzle from before the Molly chase. And speaking of that, the game ending off with the chase sequence that then ends off the chapter. So why does this game have such high praise from people? What does this game do differently that other games in the genre pretty much got panned for?
Well, you see, after finishing the game myself, that was the only thing that I could focus on. I genuinely found the game's success a lot more intriguing than the actual game itself. And after a long weekend of nothing but pondering, not really watching anybody else's videos because I didn't want to get influenced by external opinions, I think I may have come up with a good theory as to why I think this game succeeded so well.
And we need not look too far to find our first answer than to look at the developer of the game, Unique Geese. You see, as soon as I started streaming and saw that logo, I immediately felt like I'd seen it before somewhere. And it wasn't until looking into the developer that I finally remembered. This is the guy that was behind Garden of Banban Reincarnated, a completely free fan project that this individual made in a single week to prove how easy it was to make something like Banban that people like the Euphoric Brothers seems to take fucking months to release. Oh, and he also had no video game development experience during the development of this project, so keep that in mind. And I actually have played Banban Reincarnated quite a few times. Now, in and of itself, it doesn't really do anything too special, but what Geese was able to create in a singular week with no experience absolutely trumps all 6 entries that Banban officially released for a profit. The atmosphere was absolutely top-notch, sound design was so much better, everything just felt so much more uneasy to a point where I was actually scared shitless to try and actually progress at one point because this crackhead version of a Pila bird wouldn't stop staring at me. Oh, this is just very reassuring. I should 100%... Oh, fuck me. Dude, is that what I think it is? Dude, that is fucking terrifying. I don't think I'm going in there. I don't think I'm going in there. Screw that shit. And yes, while the chase scene and jump scare at the end of the game was a little bit lackluster, I had way more fun playing through this one fan-made game than I had with any of the official Banban games. So having someone with such a large amount of dedication behind a new project in this genre already spelled a massive plus for Indigo Park's success. Another thing that I also think really helped a lot with this game's success is the large amount of charm oozing from each of the characters from both their designs and their personalities, which is something I've noticed a lot of other Mascot horror games actually lack. Like what? In Poppy Playtime we have the blue sock puppet with a vor fetish, a woman sock puppet which mysteriously helps the player character, meaning that they probably have some sort of marital issues, a spooky doll that wouldn't feel out of place in Annabelle, and a spider lady that just spouts the most cringe dialogue in an attempt to sound scary, but in the end it just ends up falling flat. And just as a disclaimer again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I still have yet to play Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, and I've heard nothing but praise for that chapter specifically, but after hearing some of Catnap's dialogue in that game, it all just still sounds so incredibly cringy and can be taken out of context quite easily. And then we move over to Banban, where the main cast seems to either be phoning it in a little bit too much, like with the kangaroo foot fetish woman, or we just get the most depressing and uninterested sounding voiceovers from Banban himself, Stinger Flynn, and Banbalina just trying her absolute hardest to sound like the biggest psychopath on the planet. The voiceovers, I'd say, only really started getting a lot better with Jester Chucklefuck over here, and then when they actually got other YouTubers like Think Noodles and yeah to voice some of the characters. But Indigo Park, I'd say all the characters are voiced perfectly, with the star of the show obviously being Rambly. He gives this great combination of optimism, disgust, sarcasm, and even some remorse for putting your character through all of the shit. He's easily the most likable out of the entire cast, and I can see why so many people ended up gravitating towards him so much, in more ways than I would like to admit. And while the other characters don't really get nearly as much development as Rambly, their personalities are pretty well defined and they don't try to play out the whole stereotype of trying to be spooky just for the sake of shock value. Molly is a rejected US Air Force pilot, and Finley really needs some therapy. And Flynn is a pretentious prick, but easily has a little bit more to him because we really want to know why Rambly hates him so much. Oh, there's also this other character that we don't get to see in this chapter aside from a few times called Salem the Skunk. She is a skunk that I wouldn't be surprised if the furry fandom would like to live out their fart fetishes with her. Another thing that I need to applaud are the designs of the characters. Rambly once again being the culprit to all of this. These designs I can already see are timeless. You'll be able to tell exactly who you're looking at, whether they be a 3D model, a 2D cutout, or a pixel art version of the character, which makes me wish the entire game looked like this. My pixel art bias be damned. And even the way how Rambly is animated on these monitors, I genuinely love how expressive he can be with so few frames of animation. And it's even amplified when they actually give him a lot more frames of animation in a few parts of the game. It's just so awesome, and I need to give the animator credit for this. But besides all of that, one of the biggest things I personally think is one of the largest contributors contributing benefactors as to why this game is so beloved by its community and why I give both the game and its creator a lot of my respect is that this game is not nearly as monetary focused as a lot of the games in this genre.
So allow me to go into a little bit of a financial business lesson here for all of you that aren't really that well versed in the world of economics. You see, people such as myself, any individual or business, big or small, we really like money. In my case, being a YouTuber that would love to do this full time, not only does money allow me to keep doing the things that I love, but also it kinda allows me to live. But some people have a much more greedy perspective on how they wish to achieve some of that bread. And in the world of mascot horror, there lies some of the most egregious methods they use to attain such a profit.
As I'm pretty sure we all know, whether it be games like Poppy Playtime, Hello Neighbor, and Ban Ban, these games aren't necessarily the best. But I'm assuming to the devs, that's alright because the games serve more as interactive advertisements to their main source of revenue, and that is merchandise. More often than not, this is one of the biggest reasons why mascot horror games tend to take on the more cutesier type of characters so that they can make them as marketable as possible to their main audience, that being fetuses. And by releasing your game's first chapter as a free-to-play experience, that just opens up the floodgates for your merch to just go flying off the shelves. And games like Poppy Playtime, I think, is the biggest reason for this kind of mindset. Because there's oodles upon oodles of merch of just random characters, and even merch of characters who I'm not even sure are in the games themselves. It's even gotten so bad at one point there were actually NFTs of Poppy Playtime making the rounds. And to any of you who actually bought into this shit, you need help. But why do I bring this kind of stuff up in a video about Indigo Park? Because no matter where I looked, whether it be on Steam, on Google, on Rule34, on YouTube, oh no, I cannot for the life of me find any sign of any merch pages for the game. Now, there is indeed merch for this game, but the only place I was able to find any official merch was through Unique Geese's actual Twitter page, where he promoted a Rambly plush on Makeship. And from what I've been able to find, this is the only official piece of merch that's available for the game. The only other one that I was able to find was this hoodie on Walmart. But other than that, I couldn't really find anything else. And scouring through Geese's Twitter, there's really no real mention of merch anywhere aside from his own merch store, which, if you didn't know, the dude is a YouTuber with almost 300,000 subscribers, so him having merch related to his own YouTube channel makes 100% sense. And by even going to his channel in a video where he was talking about people making knockoff merch 8 months before the game was supposed to come out, by the way, my goodness, the sweatshops don't know when to stop, do they? He actually states that he will be making merch, but at the end of the day, that's not something he feels that him and his team should be focusing on. And as he also mentions in this video,
I think when a game gets any form of attention, one of the first things people think about is making merch. It's a great way to fund the game, and I have no problem with people selling merch. But sometimes when you prioritize getting that merch out while you're still developing the game, a lot of your characters and situations get changed to be more marketable, and you have a higher focus on getting merch out. And that's not something we want to do. The last thing I want you guys to think of is Indigo Park as a cash grab. This is a passion project that I'm pouring my entire heart into. I'm quite literally like waking up, working on the game, going to class, working on the game.
And for that, we've got to give major props to Geese and his team that made this little passion project possible. And that statement alone is enough of an answer to me as to why I personally think that Indigo Park might actually just be the best mascot horror game.
But at the end of the day, I can't speak for everybody, so why don't you let me know in the comments below what you think about Indigo Park. Did you absolutely love the game, or do you just think it's gonna fall under the same category as things like Playtime, Ban Ban, all those fucking games? I personally hope that this game succeeds. I wish Geese and his team the best of luck in how many other chapters they're gonna be releasing in the future. But in any case, I've been John from the channel with the freakishly long name. If you guys liked the video, why not consider liking and subscribing? If you want to support the channel, then you can also consider joining the Patreon and maybe becoming a channel member. And speaking of that, special thanks to Patreon member Mr. Aftonboy. And yeah, thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, love you.